As I mentioned before, I would like to thank Reagan. Thank you so much for joining us, and also Ray Cloud and James for joining us today. I'm holding here this tobacco. I honestly have so much fun having the opportunity to just, it's not even fun, it's just like so nice to be able to just like settle down, and I have my scissors here, I have my fabric here, I have the tobacco here, and just by preparing uh, the medicine of tobacco and putting it here and just thinking about the project and the program and what we're doing today. Two things came today to me while I was holding the tobacco that I just want to mention. It's so beautiful how such a small word, two small words, are so meaningful and important. The first one was land, actually three: land, love, and heal. They just came to me, and also I think it's Tanya who is learning her traditional language. I do not remember what Tanya is learning, but it's really interesting how um, the words that some people uses and indigenous people uses, like James. I sorry, Jason. I sent him an email and he said we don't say goodbye. We just say see you later. So things like that. It's so beautiful. And Johnny, Veronica Johnny also mentioned a word that is welcoming, which is opening the space, opening the circle. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay, so I've been taking lots of time today. I just want to welcome Raiden and Avery Clark, James Carpenter. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please let me know if you, I love hearts. If you want to make a presentation, I'm going to make you both of you co-hosts. That way you can share slides. Please, if you have any questions, please use also the uh, next time. Thank you. Fama P. Lizzie, we should do a workshop about learning a few words, indigenous words. It's so beautiful. Thank you, Tanya, for sharing, Tanya, Vama P. So the stage is all yours. Thank you so much. Please, before you go today, let me know what would you like me to do with this one too. And because Jason mentioned Red Cloud, his family is bigger, so I know which one is for which one of you. So when I'm putting it into the water or into a tree, or if you want me to mail it to you, I will know which tobacco belongs to. Thank you, Reina and Clark. That's it for my.
Miigwech. I guess I'll jump in, and I know I've spoken to James earlier, so maybe if I'll get started. Thank you so much, G Miigwech, Julian, for that beautiful intro and for your beautiful words. And Anin, everybody, welcome. Anin Bojo, Indishna Kaz Wabshka Makwanipua, Benese and Odom. And I'm from Indigenous Ba, Métis Red River Nation, and my roots are Irish, French, Saulteaux, Cree, and Dakota, kind of a big mix there. And it's such an honor to be here today and to be sharing with you guys. And especially in this really important talk about honoring Aki, honoring our land, Mother Earth, and honoring Nibe, the water that flows, that sustains us all through that sacred web of life. Before I get started, I just wanted to share a bit about my story, about how I came back to my culture, to my identity, and also have a big shout out to Grey Cloud there for his help along that journey. And so about 11 years ago, I started to I started to do some walks. I started to kind of call to start to want to journey different areas of the eastern, west, north, and south direction. I didn't wasn't raised in the indigenous ways of knowing and understanding, but I always had a really strong connection to my indigenous heritage, and so that was always there. And so I started to do these walks. I started to just start hiking. And during those hikes, I didn't know much about offering tobacco and how important that was. But during my walks and my journey, I was offering tobacco intuitively, remembering that connection to our teachings and that connection to that tobacco and what that meant. And so it started really with connecting to the land. In my mid 20s and my late 20s, I would go on these hikes and I would just, was healing. I needed some help. I needed some direction. It was at a time of my life when I really started to take a turn to that good life, to the Mino Bamatsuwin, as we call it. And that good life, I started to make those healthier choices, to put down some of the things that were hurting me, put down some of the things that were negative. And through that, as I started to hike, and I even was singing intuitively some songs that I hadn't heard before. And I was wondering why I was singing these beautiful songs or humming certain intonations that we would use afterwards in ceremony. And I learned the reasons why. And so as I went on those journeys in the forest and laid that tobacco down from each of those sacred directions, I started to build a relationship slowly, coming home to Mother Earth, coming home to these lands. Although these are not my ancestral lands, it's still, that Mother Earth and that connection to the land helped me remember where I fit, where I belong. And through those journeys, it eventually led to a calling to want to understand more and more about where I was going, more about what was happening, more help along my journey, and try to deepen that connection that I was building. And so I went and got help and sought out healers and sought out traditional healers and tried to understand, where my place was. It was at a time where my purpose, I didn't really see what my purpose was. I had some ancestral visitations and some very interesting spiritual occurrences that were happening, which made me again want to deepen that connection. And so I went and got help. And Great Cloud was actually the amazing healer who I first seen and offered tobacco to. And through that offering, I was told to, that I needed to start fire keeping, and I needed to go to ceremony, and I needed to sweat, and I needed to remember what was in my heart, and remember those that were calling me, and my ancestors and my helpers. I remember my clan, like I said, that Thunderbird clan, which was vitally important to me. And again, that Thunderbird clan is vitally important to bring those rains, as you mentioned, Julian. I always loved thunderstorms all throughout my life, and of course, I firmly realized why, in my earlier, in about 10 years ago, why that was. And so through that journey and fostering that connection, it really was ceremony that helped me remember my duties, my responsibilities, and really helped me to build that connection, whether that was through fasting, through vision quests, or through going to that sweat lodge and crawling in and really experiencing that womb of Mother Earth, as we say that sweat lodge is, and going back to that womb of Mother Earth, creating my prayers and asking for that healing, asking for that direction. But also it reminded me all throughout those times I would go to ceremony, how grateful I was to the land I was sitting on. When I would sit in that lodge, I would be feeling that Mother Earth right under me. I'd feel that dirt. When it got too hot, I might rest my face on that dirt to feel that gentleness that coolness of Mother Earth replenish me. And so all these things, all these ceremonies have many meanings inside of them, have many different understandings to learn. I come here today just to share. By no means am I an expert. I'm learning too what that means to go to ceremony and to understand, where our calling and what we need to do to be better caretakers of the land, better caretakers of our sacred water, that Nibe. That's so important. And as I went to, even fasting and through these ceremonies, it was the gratefulness that really started to reign in my good mind. It really started to help me understand how grateful I am. When we abstain from water for many days at a time, sometimes depending on how many days we have in the vision quest or the fasting, we sacrifice that not only for the people, but for also ourselves and for the land, for everything. It's all connected, for the waters, for the air, for the fire, for the universe, for the stars. It all means something. And when we make that sacrifice to abstain from food and water, it also helps you, I think, build that connection of gratefulness. You have a new way of looking at things when you come back and you take that first sip of water. You start to remember how very sacred that is. And there was a time, in my younger years, I would take that for granted. And even to this day, I try my best, right, to take good care of the water and take good care of the land. But as we say, in the community, we're stronger in numbers, right? So there's so much more that needs to be done. And so I wanted to talk right now about, there's a huge shift happening right now on the planet. Julian, you mentioned that storm that came through. Everything's changing, and it's been changing for a long time. And we're really living in cathartic times where we need to make a big decision as a world, not only as a nation on Turtle Island, but a worldwide understanding that we need to do more. And you can see many different ideas that the indigenous peoples, not only from Turtle Island, but from all across the world, have trying to do their best to rein in that message that we need to take care of the land, we need to protect the land, and we need to make sure that we protect our water to sustain it. You see great things like on the Klamath River now has the same rights as a human. And that's a Yurok tribe in 2019 declared that rights, that river has a personhood. So that river is treated as a person and has the same rights as a person. Some of these initiatives, this is how we can stop, let's say, the low water flows have caused high rates of disease and a loss in salmon and canceling fishing seasons. And so if we don't protect these sacred waterways, then we lose the natural balance of the way of life. Some of those fish are no longer swimming upstream or downstream. Their cycles are broken, right? And then that reflects in all sorts of different ways of damaging the ecosystems. And then when we damage the ecosystems, the indigenous peoples that are on those lands, that have been sustaining those lands, from time immemorial, pre-colonization, those indigenous peoples have been taking care of that land. And all across the world, and then on Turtle Island, we have protocols how we take care of that land. We never take more than what we need. We make sure we use everything we need. In past times, if we would go on a hunt, we would make sure that there was tobacco down, that we laid that tobacco down, and that we asked that animal permission. When we go and harvest medicine, we ask that tree, can I harvest some of your roots? That's the first and foremost protocol. We have to ask permission. And through that permission comes that sacredness of taking what we need, but never taking more than we need. And in this day and age, I'm sure it doesn't take any of us too long to go outside and see how much we consume, how many things that we take. And I'm guilty of it too, right? Like we're using always more than we need. And so we all have to be reminded that, there isn't an unlimited amount. Although the water replenishes itself through the scientific forms of going into space and then coming down, and it replenishes it still. There's, if we're taking too much and we're using and abusing it, then that can deplete. And so I wanted, before I go into maybe a bit more of how we can, how Indigenous peoples, or how myself takes care of the land and honors the land, I wanted to remind us, there's different things we can do. We can reach out to politicians. There's still many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit communities that have lack of running water in Canada, right here. And it's a must that this has to change. And how can we change it? We need allyship. We need everyone to remember that we all have a part to play. We can start knocking on that politician's doors and making it a must that we must have clean drinking water for all of the peoples across Turtle Island. It's a must that we can also boycott these companies that are taking and abusing the land, that are taking and abusing the waterways. Why for too long do we see Indigenous peoples fighting for the rivers, where where either we're mining, or where our governments or these companies are trying to put the oil pipelines in? We must take action, and it's got to be in numbers. It can't just be limited to the Indigenous peoples of those lands. We all, if we're not custodians of those lands, then we all can be allies to that fight, to that cause, to make a change. And so I just wanted to talk about a couple of ways we can change. You see, we have a choice. We can focus on our energy on developing the world, accumulating more, getting more money through the things that we take from the land, or we can direct our energy on getting more in tune with Mother Nature, building that connection, regardless of where we come from, and start to understand that there is a sacred relationship happening. There is an intertwined web of life. Chief Seattle from the Duwamish and Squamish tribes once said, "Humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect." And that's right in our teachings. If we look at that sacred medicine wheel and how those colors are directed, it's really meant to be all of our nations, all across the world, and how we all are in that sacred web of life. We all have responsibilities in that circle. And in the middle there is our spirit, and that great mystery, the Gitche Monado creator, sits with all of us in that sacred web. But so does the animals, so does the lands, the shrubs, the mammals, the insects. All of them sit with us along that. Everything here is alive. Even if we think of like some of this table I'm on, it's alive. It's from a tree, right? It was harvested in a good way. Just like our bundles and our medicine items. That's why a lot of our medicine items are used in that sense. They're living beings, and we treat them that way. Even though they, we might have used the hide from a deer long ago, but that deer, that spirit is in those drums. The beautiful hoop, that wood is in our drums as well. Everything's alive, all of the hide, everything connects. And it's just like that web of life. It's all connected. And so I feel we sometimes lack that understanding, even not only our connection to the earth, to the land, to the waters, but our connection to each other. Because you see, when we divide each other, when we break apart, regardless of where we come from, we forget we're all in that circle. And when we forget that we're all included in that circle, and we all are here, and we're all responsible for this beautiful land, for this beautiful Mother Earth, then we fail to, I feel, sometimes take action, because things like that get forgotten. And in this day of age of consumption, and really, things are so fast. And that's why through ceremony and through coming back to those ceremonies and going on fasting, on fasting quests or hambleshas, as we say in the Suyin language, going on those mountains, whether we're on a mountain or in a forest, that really help me to connect and slow myself down. Because there was at a time where I was really quick and just kind of running around on autopilot without even thinking of the impacts I've had, the impact I have on the land, the impact I have on the waters, or the impacts I have on others. And so I feel with it's ingrained in our ceremonies, in the way we do things, that we understand those laws. And sometimes, it's not theoretical, right? I can share a bit of my experience, but it's an experiential thing. It's you feel it. And that's the most impactful, I think. When you feel those ceremonies, when you feel that good love of Mashomis, that grandfather son, when you feel that water taking care of you. I mean, we're 55 to 60% water. So what we are water, right? So we need to take care of that water. And those trees, we have a sacred relationship with them. We give them oxygen. Sorry, they give us oxygen and we give them that carbon dioxide, right? So we're in this together. And so when we start to reflect that, when we all start to understand that, I think there's some really good healing. I know we talked about love and healing in the land, Julian. I heard you mention that with those Sema offerings. When we think about that healing that comes when we reflect and we just take a moment to be still or to be quiet. And many different spiritual understandings around the world have this practice, right? This practice of going deep within and reflecting. And that's ingrained, I believe, in our culture, but so is our community. So is everybody doing their part, right? To help. And it's always that focus to help Mother Earth, to help honor the way we do things, honor the way we go about our day, and honor those things that we take for granted. Our ancestors knew this. They knew that balance. They reminded ourselves to stay within that balance, to never take more than we need. And through that balance came that understanding that builds that relationship to all sacred things. I'll share a story, and then I'd love to hear Great Cloud share, his thoughts and feelings. When I was in the Black Hills a couple of years ago, and I went to Sundance, and it was one of my first times I felt this ancestral connection to the land. It was like I had been there before, and not only that, I could see the past, right in front of me. That's how I felt. I could see the teepees, along those Black Hills and surrounded that area, and it really ignited something in me. It really made me feel like the land was speaking to me. And through that journey, when I went out there, I wanted to honor the thunder beings and thunderbirds. But I think it was more than that. I wanted to honor the land. I wanted to make that connection. I wanted to show that I love you, that I'm so grateful to be home. And so I was helping, and I was tired. It was day 3 of the Sundance, and I had this urge to do kind of like a pilgrimage before we started on day 3. I was firekeeping at the time. And so early in the morning, before we had finished up the sweat lodge and before that the Sundancers went to the circle, I went up way high. I took 4 plums, and I had a little bit of my bundle. I had my drum with me, and I'll never forget, I had my favorite Thunderbird totem with me, this beautiful red cedar Thunderbird totem that I loved it so much. It was one of my favorite items. And so I walked up for a good hour and a half up a mountain, even though I was already on mountains, but I walked up way high in the Black Hills, and there was no one there, right? Nothing. All I could hear is that beautiful wind and just the leaves. And on that hill, I offered those 4 plums that I had taken to my clan, to my ancestors, to that land, really. And as I offered that, they asked, can I have that Thunderbird totem too? And I was in tears because it was hard. It was hard to give that up. But I honored that. And I thought about this totem. What better way? All the things that it had been through. I found that totem at a flea market. I kind of rescued it. So it went from one spot that now it overlooks the Black Hills. And I guess I use that story because, not only for the honoring I did and how it helped me build that connection, but just how quick things can change. Look at that Thunderbird totem, that went from sitting in a flea market to sitting and overseeing the Black Hills. And so I encourage everybody today, what can we do? What can we do together? What can we do to make a difference? How can we go about our lives to being better custodians to the lands, to the waters, and to each other? And I'll pass it over to Grey Cloud Miigwech.
Chi Miigwech, can you hear me, Raiden? I would just like to say Miigwech, Raiden. I know there's lots to share, and if someone can just put a thumbs up so that we can hear me, just to make sure I don't have to change my my moment here. Ani Bojo, everyone, and what that means is hello. And I just want to make sure that I'm checking the message here.
We can hear you. Yes.
Miigwech. So thanks for the introduction, and I'll let you know that those words are even hard for people within our own nations to share. And remember, for our languages and indigenous nations that are around North America, languages have different dialects and different ways of saying things. So you're absolutely right. We say that Anishinaabeg Nation is usually that territory around the Great Lakes. Earlier, if you see, I'm right beside Lake Ontario. It's just right over there. And right now I'm in the air. I am on the 35th floor of a concrete box, I guess, of a condominium here. And, sometimes we get to sit in the clouds up here because those clouds are coming through our territories, our shared lands. So as the start, Miigwech, and as you've heard from my relative, share that, my name is Grey Cloud, and I'm Anishinaabeg, Chippewa, Oneida, and Cree. I grew up in the city here in Toronto, and like many of you have grown up in some of your home territories there. And being Indigenous, being First Nations, it means so many things. But to me, part of our way of life is really about that connection to the land, connection to the water, connection to that air, connection to the fire. And importantly, all of this, we've learned those four elements, earth, water, the breath, the air, and of course that fire. But for all of us tonight, what we've been learning all our life, of course, is connection to spirit. I think the responsibilities that we share all together is that somehow within all of us, we have these very sacred instructions. Raiden talked about some of that truth of our histories. So if we go back 7 generations to our great, 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 great grandmothers and grandfathers, we all can say in this room, on this call, that all and each of our families has had that connection to land, to water, to the air, and to that fire. You see, sometimes in history, they talk about First Nations, Indigenous people being custodians of the land, and that our relationship to the land and water is one of spirit. And as we all learn, remember everyone, we all spent much time in that water, that very sacred water that we were carried in. So the first part of our spirit is that water. And sometimes we learn that some of these medicines like tobacco or sweetgrass or sage or cedar, we hear that they're medicines that are here to help us. But I want to share something that we all can do. One of the most powerfulest and strongest and most helpful is that water. That water is all of us. That water is life. And all it takes for all of us to do is to just look at it. I know there's a little bit of shine, but there's water over there, Lake Ontario. All we have to do is look at it and say, Miigwech. Say, I love you. Thank you. Thank you for helping us in our lives. And I teach lots and so many teachings from all over the place. But the teachings that we share this evening are the same teachings that everyone, all of us, come to earth with. We are all related, all of us. It was that world out there, that corruption of power and of money and ownership, that helped many of us forget that we're all connected. And I share this openly about that water that we share. I was on a call not so long ago with many government officials, and I asked everyone on that call, there was probably about 500-600 people from all across Canada. I got invited to share some of these teachings that I get asked to share sometimes. But at that call with those government officials, I thought, what greater time to share a need, to share an inherent need of the many nations. On that call, I Googled clean water on First Nations in Canada. And at that time, about 4 months ago, there was still 123 communities inside North America and Canada's borders that haven't had access to clean water. Not in a day, not a month, but in over 5 years, over 10 years. So I asked everyone. I didn't share that with them first. I asked everyone that was there, I said, you know, we're very fortunate down here in these big cities, in our municipalities that have infrastructure for water. And I said, our relationship to that water is very important. And I asked a couple people to raise their hands and share with me if they had a shower that day, or if they had a coffee or a tea or a Coca-Cola or a water. And many people showed me their cups. And I thought, wow, not that it is anyone's personal responsibility, but it's a responsibility that we all share. So I shared with them in that meeting, I said, you know, I'm so happy that many of us had a drink today. I'm so happy that we could use that water and wash our face, our hands. And I shared with them how sad I was that an hour before the call, I Googled that there were so many communities without access to that very, very sacred medicine. You see, water is Mother Earth's spirit. And she has a free-flowing spirit that cannot be contained. And the wind and the sun They help bring that water to all parts of the earth so that we all can share it in a very sacred way. Now, I know in other parts of the world that you may understand there are big things that are happening with that water. An example is over the weekend, the heat, the coolness, the right conditions created a very large, fast moving storm that moved so fast that the wind caused some cleansing. The wind caused some movement. And our relationship to the land, just remember where you were on Saturday. Your relationship to the land, your knowledge to the land, you looked up to that sky and you said, oh my goodness, there's a storm. So anyone that was in Southern Ontario, all the way up towards Barrie and all the way across to Ottawa, felt, heard the power of water, the power of wind, and the power of life. And last year, we start to see the changes with our people, with our relatives. All of us have been so eager to put a real sickness away. The entire earth started to listen. And whether it's right or wrong is one thing, but we got connected to ourselves. And for many of us, it's been a real journey. But I ask you this, in the last 2 years, have you been out to visit with Mother? Have you been out to take that time to do some real thinking about spirit, about life, about human beings? Have you made that connection to all things? And I like to say that we have. But that power of life, we think that everyone would just remember by now of how important and sacred each and every one of us is. And I think sometimes some human beings, they lose that sacredness and they do some things that just seem so irresponsible or seem so unlikely of someone. Just the other day, I got so sad because there's lots of children in my life. I got sad because some of these children have been impacted by the way the world is. And I want to acknowledge those little spirit beings that got called home to the spirit world because someone's connection was severed. So our connections to this land, I'll tell you something. I only know one thing about the trees, Mitagog. The trees are only afraid of one thing. It's in our old teachings. They're only afraid of the wind. The trees are only afraid of the wind. It's their song. I will be brave and I'll stand up through these conditions. But please, grandfathers and grandmothers, be gentle on me with this wind, because that wind is very powerful. That wind is the breath of life. And some of these relatives of ours, these trees, you've seen them in the last few days. They've fallen over. And if we've seen that, your connection to that tree, all you have to say is, oh my goodness, tree, I feel for you. I know that wind and that water and that storm came through fast. But miigwech, and thank you. And now it's time for you to travel to spirit world, but we honor you. That water, that connection to water. How many times do many of us go and sit down by the water or try to get to water to balance ourselves out. But how many times have we given that water instructions? So this summer, for all of us, if we're near water, even when we're drinking that water, please give it instructions to help you feel that connection. I often say that the greatest spiritual teachings that we carry are already inside all of us. And I don't need to be indigenous to know how sacred water is. I don't need to be indigenous to know how sacred the land is. All we have to do is create that relationship with the last little bit that we may see in our territories, in our lands here. When you go to that park, when you walk through the park, don't be afraid to touch the land. Spend time to talk to your relatives. Those trees, like Raiden was sharing, are more connected to us than we know. We just think because they don't have a voice, because they don't speak English or human talk. But we know if you have four-leggeds at home or two-leggeds with wings, if you have birds or fish or any kind of animal, a cat, a dog, you know that they're spirit. And you definitely know the love that you receive from those extended family members. The biggest thing I want to teach everyone tonight is something that I would ask you as a helper, as a Shkabewis. This means a helper. As a helper, when you take time to share from you, your voice, your breath, your thoughts, your heart, your body, if you take time, please, all I ask from now until you go back to spirit world yourself, every now and then, give that acknowledgement to all our relations, our first family. Our first family is the land, the water, the animals, the plants, the trees. It's you, it's me. Our relationship to all these things, all our relations. So when you're down by the water, please give that communication. Have a talk with her. Have a talk with grandfather sun. Grandfather sun, thank you for lighting up Mother Earth for us to see. And that night sun, grandmother moon, when she's full, look at her. How many people look at that full moon? But call her by her name. Share that teaching from the land that they taught us this. The grandfather sun said, I'm the grandfather, call me grandfather. The moon said, I'm the grandmother, call me grandmother. So next full moon, everyone, a month from now, around the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th of June, when you look at that full moon, just look at her and say, hey, grandmother, love you. When you go down to that water, give it power. Give your medicine. Give you that power and say, hey, water, you're my relative. I love you. Thank you for all those drinks we had, no matter what kind they were. Water, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Sprite, fruit juice, Fruitopia, that bubbly water, even those fun waters that we sometimes drink. All of it, everything, all that food we eat is all water, all of it. How many people here like salads? I love it. They're all water. What about if we eat meat? All the animals that eat those plants, we eat them. They had that water. Our relationship to everything is so important, and you will feel so connected If you just acknowledge it, even that breath we're breathing right now, that breath comes from the land, because those trees were given a responsibility to create and help create that oxygen. But we forget that there's something in the waters, in the oceans, that also help to create oxygen. And the fire from the volcanoes that push up the carbon monoxide so high that it blankets down to feed the trees. And that's why they only happen every now and then. Because maybe we're forgetting to give that breath to those trees. So when you're walking in the parks, the nature trails, by water, biking, rollerblading, walking, sitting, my uncle's in a wheelchair, rolling around, still doing ceremonies. When you see a seagull that's hungry, remember, he's not there crying because he's hungry. The seagull used to never share his food. So every time he gets a little bit of food, you hear the seagull. He's got to tell everyone, I got some food, I got some food. And then he gets all mad because every other seagull comes and wants to eat his food. And that's an old story because he didn't know how to share a long time ago. But back to this water story. So 130 nations 4 months ago without clean water. Miigwech for having a voice. Miigwech for all of you who care about this relationship while we're on this call. Because through those voices of ours, we can create change for anything, anywhere, anyhow, to be ourselves, to know that we're all related. I lost the interest a long time ago of whether I am this or whether I'm that. I am a spiritual being having a human experience, and these are all our relatives. This medicine, Wingish, sweetgrass, mind, body, spirit. I smell Mother Earth and all her love. I don't even need to light that up to smudge with this. I could just smell it. And you all know sweetgrass here in North America because she always comes to give you a smell of that. You know this medicine, the hair of Mother Earth. What a beautiful, beautiful way our ancestors taught us, because each and every one of our ancestors have lived on the land. Doesn't matter where we're from. We gathered that water, we gathered that sustenance, and we used to give real honor to it. We used to give honor every time we drank. Miigwech, thank you. Every time we ate some food, no matter what kind of food it is, oh, Miigwech, thank you. And each and every one of us has had times in our life where we felt disconnected. Maybe we didn't have enough. But check it out. Everyone that is here has had enough. We have had just the right amount of air, just the right amount of water, just the right amount of food, just the right amount of fire and warmth, just the right amount of spirit. So you're all my relatives here. I would look at you if we were in here, I'd give you a big hug because you're my cousins. Maybe some of you are my uncles, my aunties. Maybe some of you are mums and dads or grandpas and grandmas. And maybe the only thing that separates it is that language barrier. Maybe if we go back to the core of truth, we will see that everything that we're sharing tonight, it makes a lot of sense. Because our teachings are not difficult, and they definitely weren't supposed to be hard to learn. You know, a plant needs grandfather sun to help it grow. But it also needs the wind to push the clouds around to bring the water down so that it could feast. And what we don't see is that runoff water that drags all the minerals and foods from all the other plants and animals. And then that plant will take that life and give it back to us because of our relationships to everything. when you go to the water, even tonight, when you have a glass of water, have a glass of water and tell it miigwech. Just be like, thank you. And drink for the ones that may not have that clean water. But I heard recently, I was so happy to hear, the government of Canada must have heard many of the voices, politicians, all the people that are trying to make change do it. In the near future, the government has again promised that there will be clean water all across the land for each and every one of the individuals that share this land. But more specifically for these 130 communities that I talked about that didn't have clean water 4 months ago. So miigwech. I mean, miigwech to all those fighters of Mother Earth, because we all have a responsibility. Every human being has the will, the power to connect to all our relatives out there, all our relations. And it doesn't matter how much you learn, doesn't matter how much wisdom or knowledge you carry or how much understanding you have. It only takes a second to touch a tree. When you're walking in the forest, say, hey, tree, thank you. You may not think it, but that tree will really appreciate that. And for all the ones and things of corruption that we know are corrupt, like earlier I showed you the city of Toronto from this 38th floor, whatever floor I'm on. And I look out and I see a little bit of green space, just a little bit. But I grew up in the city and I know there's lots of parks all over the place. Lots of places to be connected to Mother Earth. And for anyone that's in a city in Ontario here, let's say we're in Toronto, there's rivers that we did lots of work with. And we're sharing it to go say hello to the river. Go say hello to those parks. Go out there and have a, what do they call that when you go out and you have a picnic? Go have a picnic and watch your relatives come. You always see the ants at a picnic, coming and looking for a little bit to take home to their community. You know, when the rains come, those ants, they get very afraid, right? Because the water goes down. But they've learned to build their things down and they make little catches and they have little drains off, but we think they're just a little wee ants. What about the bees? In our language, the bees are called amo, and breath is called bidamo. So the bees are our breath. We understood that we weren't scientists. The spirit, the connection to it told us, hey guys, we go around helping these things to grow, so take care of us. And that's what they do. They share their medicine with other plants as they move around. And if we've all had honey before, it's really good stuff. How in the heck can a little wee bee do all that and then give us some sweetness? Miigwech. I love it. But even that bee, even the flies, everything is so connected. So connected, it's amazing. And you don't need to go to school to learn it. All you need to do is just do it. Just go and do it. I heard a story recently of spirit traveling so quick and so fast with wind because we were down at the water sharing our medicines. Our medicines, our breath. We might not have a smudge near us. You have that breath, though. Thank you, creation. Thank you, land. Sometimes we think that maybe Indigenous people, First Nations people, Métis, Inuit, that we want land back. Maybe for some. But in our way, we never owned the land. Ever. Ever. There was nothing that was owned. It was all shared, all of it. We shared freely. This ownership part of things is, I think, what has helped us sometimes lose that part of us. Because I'm sure all of you also struggle with those bills. Check this out. Isn't there enough resources just in North America alone that there should be 0 homeless people? Each and every one of us should have a home that we don't have to pay for. Everyone, not just my people, everybody. Everyone should have access to everything. But that ownership part of life is what creates that division amongst many of us. Glasses. I mean, to see. Just to see. I mean, this should be free for everybody. Everything. I don't mind paying a water bill because the infrastructure brings the water to my home and all the pipes and all the workers. Sure, I don't care about that. No worries, let's do it. But it should be free for everyone. And we should protect the last little bit of land that there is. The last little bit. And when you're driving up and down the highways, look at the farms. Look at them. How many of us have ever thanked a farmer? Like actually did it? You know, it's hard because we're not connected. We're all on our own little parts, working so hard for something that we all can share. All of it. And we're kind. We're kind beings, all of us. But in our way, we say we are some of the ones that we rely on everything else to survive. Everything else. Check out these damn things, these earphones. $300. But they send it to a country where people are told what they can do, what they can't do. Not like here. The freedoms are taken away. And this costs what? $5? $5 to make? I paid $300 for these damn things. And some poor family on the other side of the world making these from Mother Earth's resources. Every single wooden door that's out there was a tree that maybe wasn't honored when it was cut down and processed to make a door. Our teepees didn't have locks. All across the land. They didn't have locks. But every one of our homes now has a lock on that door. And we're told that we're primitive and savage. And that, you know, our way of life is different. Well, actually, we're told our way of life is no good. But now we're all starting to see it's like, holy smokes, a simple life is such more better. You know, sometimes a warrior, all a warrior needs to do is just sit down all day long on a log and just be. Just be. But these are our relations. And I mean it. Please open up always your being, your spirit, and say, this is my relations. These are my relatives. You're my cousin. I don't care the color of skin. Since when does skin have a color? but we sure like to hold that real close. I'm just me. You are you. We are spirits. So please, please, and I mean it, just try it. Oh my God, you're gonna feel so good. Next time you're all at a park, just touch a tree and just touch it like this. See, I'm touching this. Say, hey, miigwech. Go down to that water, drink, and say, oh man, miigwech, you know, your medicine. Oh, thank you. But never forget, for you, that Mother Earth is a gift. There was a time when everything on Mother Earth was walking out of balance. There was a time. And a fire came from the sky and said, everyone learn again. When I look at who we are, I see spirit again. I see it every day. The hawks, the eagles, the bears, all our relatives, they used to roam free around here. But they made agreements with us, we made agreements with them, and they said, okay, you guys stay here, we're gonna go a little further north. But remember that water is life and that it's all of our responsibilities to connect with her. I call her her. You can call her however you want. But the land, that you are a sacred being, each and every one of us is. And it doesn't take much. Like, do you think the water wants your money? No. You think the land wants your money? No. They just want you to know them as you do. So, my relatives, all I ask tonight, I just want you to learn one thing. And I know I could talk for days and hours. I just want you to learn one thing. Remember your relations. All our relations is everything. You and me included. The plants, the animals, the earth, the water, above the ground, below the ground, above the earth, below the earth. We're all connected. And if we know that, then Mother Earth feels a little stronger. And that's our responsibility to each other, is to remember that they're our relatives. So I'm going to call that son a grandfather. I'm going to call that moon a grandmother because it makes sense to me. I'm going to call the sky my father, and I'm going to call the earth my mother. And most importantly, I'm going to remember that it's all spirit and that we can love, we can heal, and we can help one another out. Just as one of my other relatives was saying in one of those other teachings that we shared. So everyone, miigwech, and I'm very passionate about these things, but so are you. And please acknowledge yourself, you're learning. It's not about what's right or what's wrong. It's about the acknowledgement of our relations. And I'm teaching you what I teach everyone. Just go and connect. Just like we did on Zoom, go and connect and don't be shy about it. When you cleanse your face with that water, every now and then just say, oh, miigwech. And be who you are. And please, again, the only thing I want us to learn is how to say that when we're out and about on our own. All my relations, I respect you, I honor you, you are me, I am you. I am your breath, you are my breath. I am your water, you are my water. And one day we'll return back to the earth and we'll feed her because they're going to eat this unless someone puts me in a fire, you know. And then the trees will eat me still because that carbon monoxide will give them breath. So miigwech, everyone. I know we have some time for question period, and I'm going to mute myself. But miigwech, I appreciate all of you, and I really mean it. Don't ever think that you can't. Just do it, okay? Build your connection to all things. Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Kate. And also so much reading as well. Wow, Lindsay, thank you so much for connecting us and have the privilege to connect with two amazing people. And And for those who you don't know, Lindsay curated this series, and thank you so much, Lindsay, as well. Please, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you want to share an emoji, if you want to just, say anything, please feel free to do so. Please unmute yourself. We have around 15 minutes left, so please take this time. Otherwise, I will take over. No, I'm just kidding. I have so many things to say and questions and things, but please feel free to ask any questions. Here, I will say we have Daniel, Angie, we have Anna, we have Claudia, Helen, Christina. Christina, I'm thinking about you because Christina is a colleague of mine and she's in beautiful BC, beautiful Vancouver this week. So you have these huge trees. I was able to go there last year and they were so big that I was not even able to wrap all my hands around the tree. So please, also Sandra, Sarah, Tanya, Leslie, if you want to share something, please feel free to do so.
I just wanted to say really quickly, miigwech now for coming and sharing. And I think that, for myself, it's just, I understand, how valuable time is, and what each spirit's bringing. So I just wanted to really acknowledge that. And I just appreciate you guys so much. So thanks so much, miigwech. Yeah.
Can you tell us, Ray, what are you pointing at? Can you tell us a little bit about your...
Yes, sorry. So here, the sun is also a light giver, right? And the water's a light giver. And all the women on earth are light givers and creators. So this, to me, when Lindsay had shared that, I'm just sending her that love. That's all I'm doing. But also because it represents that fire. It represents that spirit. And this is my gold necklace. And it looks beautiful, But I really was just sending it at Lindsay because me and Lindsay are pals, and I just wanted to send her some Care Bear stare, we call it. The Care Bear stare, sending my love.
Thank you for sharing that. Great. Anybody would like to share anything else? Do you have any questions? Yes, Angie, please feel free. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm joining from Toronto, and I just wanted to thank you for what you shared just now. And I don't know, I wanted to participate in a different way. So I pulled out my sketchbook, and the first page that I opened it to happened to be exactly something that you were talking about. So, and I couldn't find my art materials, so I grabbed what I could find, which happened to be a blue pencil crayon, and I just started to go with it. So I'm going to share what I did, and this was not planned, but I don't know, it just basically was, you were telling me the story, which was already on the page, and I was just kind of reflecting on that a bit. And yeah, your words were just so powerful, and I just kept going with it. So this is, I guess, the landscape, and I guess it's the sky you were talking about, and mother and father. You said the sky was mother, I think, and you said, or do I have that the other way around? But I don't know, I feel that it's simple, my drawing, but it's something that I think I'd like to continue with. And Lindsay, I do have questions for you, but I don't feel comfortable talking about them right now. So perhaps when you're in Toronto, so I'm hoping to meet up with you and discuss a few things. But definitely all that you've shared so far has been really impactful to my practice and everything. So I thank you for that. And hi, Julian.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing that beautiful view, Great Cloud. It is very nice to see that. And yes, remember, Angela, that we are going to have an in-person session. We're going to have the privilege to have Lindsay. Uh, Actually, we have 3 days with Lindsay, which I'm very excited. So we have on Saturday, June 11th, from 2 to 5 p.m. at Gibson House, and we have also on Sunday, June the 12th. And for those who are not familiar with June, two things about June. And thank you for sharing that beautiful view on the lake from your balcony. We have on June 21st is the unveiling of the art piece that Lindsay and the community members are creating. But more than that, it is the National Indigenous Day, and also June is the National Indigenous History Month. So for us to learn and continue learning, I cannot imagine how hard you felt that storm, Great Cloud from where you were. I live on a 20th floor and you could see a little bit of it, but sometimes when you're on the land, when you're, my friends who were driving because we had a brunch, they're saying like everything was flowing around. It was going like everywhere. So thank you for so much for sharing. And Angela, as I mentioned before, and to all of you, if you would like to connect with Lindsay, she's going to be here in Takaronto on the 11th, the 12th, and the 21st as well. And we are doing, yes, good to mention. Thank you, Lindsay, for reminding me that we're doing a water ceremony. Please, 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 if you submit your form and you felt like you probably were not connected at the time to do the water ceremony for the 21st, you can go back to the application and you can select the option to go to this beautiful ceremony. We are going to be sharing details with you about what is going to happen this event. Thank you, Tanya, for asking that. So it's 90% confirmed, you know, Mother Earth and the water doesn't ask for money, but humans, we ask for money. So until we don't pay the full amount of the venue, I cannot fully tell you where the venue is, but it's in North York because this project is based on North York as well. So this venue is our community center. So I'm going to tell you. So it is the Banbury a Center, a community center. It's located in North York. It's nearby the water as well. We're going to be walking around. Also, Lindsay is not only the curator of this session, but she's also the curator of the options that we have for food for our event happening as well. So we have Niche Dish is actually bringing some beautiful and nice and yummy food. They're located in Milton, and we're just going to bring it back all the way to Toronto. And if you don't have any question, I just want to say that I am very, my heart just feels like big and huge, and I just want to thank the two of you and Lindsay as well for sharing so much, and not only the knowledge but the passion and the way that you were talking to all of us, the two of you. I really would like to acknowledge that. I would really like to thank you both of you for joining us today on Thursday, May 26th of 2022. Temperatures in Toronto, 25 degrees. It feels like 30 degrees Celsius is going to be. So the water is coming. And I just want to mention a comment, and it's related to, just give me a second. I'm going to bring something that I got. I was in Mexico for a couple of months, and it just brought me some memories to something. Hold on for a second. This is not an eagle. This is not an eagle. This is just a necklace that I got. And it's a very beautiful necklace that a person did in a region that is called Oaxaca, where many indigenous peoples live. But I remember from previous workshops and talks that I have attended to that the eagle and the flying creatures are the ones that bring us like wisdom and knowledge and news. And it's so beautiful because when you were talking about, and I love, by the way, I love thunderstorms. You have no idea. I'm so passionate for a couple of things. So first of all, and I'm sorry if I'm taking too much time, please stop me, all of you, the other participants, if you want to mention something. And it is about So I am from Cali, Santiago de Cali, Colombia, and the region, because of the region, we have many thunders and lightning as well. And I love lightning so much. It's something that I'm very passionate. When I'm on an airplane, and I know you might call me cuckoo, but anyway, that's me. I love turbulence because that just makes me so humble and reminds me that we're so little tiny creatures. And I actually had to experience a thunderstorm, a huge one. It was so big that it covered 3 stages in Peru. We got hit by a lightning, and actually I didn't realize how bad it was until we landed, and then all the ambulances and all the fire department people were there. But it's just because it reminds us, like, just like, just be humble, like just being humble in how small we are. So when we're talking about the creatures and the feathers, it's really interesting because the clouds, the gray clouds, and some people, when you think about the gray clouds, people think about the storms as a bad thing to happen, but then it's like how the flying creatures are going to the water, drinking this water or whatever they're growing this water, and having their food, and then they're going back to the sky and kind of like having a conversation, a personal conversation to the other form of water. So I just wanted to mention that because it's super cool, because it's kind of like the water and the responsibilities that we have with the water and the land and what you mentioned before. I am very happy and glad that the government of Canada and in North America and Turtle Island have agreed to ensure that 130 nations have the opportunity to have drinkable water. We had a conversation with for also with Jason and Lindsay about this issue, which is an issue that many people in many other places around the world do not know about in Canada. And it's important that we talk about this. Uh, Thank you, Miguel. Thank you so much. I'm just fulfilled. My heart is like bumping right now. I really appreciate it. We have the last session happening next Tuesday with Lindsay Nickers as well. Please do not forget that one is on Tuesday from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Thank you, Ricardo and Miguel. Thank you, Miguel Raiden as well for joining us. Thank you, Lindsay. Please let me know what would you like me to do. So I know this one is great, which is very convenient because I have you right here on my right, left. I have dyslexia. Left side, and then I have this on my right side. So I can put into the water. I can take it to the ceremony that we're doing with Lindsay on the 21st of June as well. Funny enough, yes, sounds good. Okay, I will do that. So Lindsay, these are for the ceremony. And I also have a couple more that we can have for the ceremony. I just want to mention as well something that I just found out about what you were mentioning before about the moon. And it's really, really, really interesting. And is that the full moon that is coming up, it is happening on June 14th, and it's called the Strawberry Moon. So for those who were here for the sessions that we had in 2021, the iTalks, the main iconography that we were using was a strawberry because there are some strawberry teachings as well. I do not know about the teachings of the strawberry fully, but it's really interesting to see how the strawberry and the heart of the land is happening this June. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. I will make sure that when I see that full moon, I will say hello, grandmother moon. And tomorrow morning, when I see on the east side where I live the sun, I will call him hello. I will say hello, grandfather sun. And the sky as well. Hello, father sun, sky, and hello, mother earth. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful afternoon. Have a beautiful weekend. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Miigwech. Thank you. Bye bye.